I think most people get the idea that hypnosis is like stage hypnosis, which is a show, and they make people do weird stuff. Well, the reality of it is that you can't be made to do anything that you don't want to do. If your moral code says don't run around and do stupid stuff, then you're not going to do it. So the mystique for hypnosis comes from the stage shows and the movies. I've seen movies about Eastern swamis putting people in trances and things like voodoo and things like that that hypnotize people into doing strange stuff. Well, it's not reality. You can't be put in that kind of trance unless you firmly believe that you can be put in that kind of trance. So try to take some of the mystique out of it. And I ran into a friend of mine at one of the stores I frequent when I'm getting supplies for my construction company. And I've known him for a long time, and we were talking about, he was getting up in age, and he's saying that he's having some back issues and whatnot, and he's gone to the doctors and done all this stuff, and he's to the point, well, I just don't want to go through all this crap that they're putting me through. I'm just going to suffer through it. So I said, hey, you ever thought about being hypnotized or trying self-hypnosis to deal with some of that pain? And I said, I'm taking this class now, and I'm learning a lot of stuff about hypnosis and self-hypnosis, and that it's been, a lot of people get a lot of good results from it. And he didn't have a lot of time. He was in the middle of doing something, so I told him, I said, it's pretty simple, and here's one technique. Excuse me. One technique, and something you can easily do is sit back and say you get in front of your TV. If you get home from work, you lean back in an easy chair and you kind of relax to a point just before you're falling asleep, because you want to be in as deep a rest state as possible, and start painting this picture of things. Make a little video in your mind of a control panel with lots of buttons and dials and gauges and all that kind of stuff on it. And this is all pretend, so you just got to play the little game here. So you visualize that you've got this bank of instruments, and over here on the side there's a dial that says pain volume, and it's a dial you can turn back. So you give the pain number a number as to the intensity. You go to the doctor and you go in there and they says, okay, what's your pain level today? Well, you give that a number, that gives you something to work off of. So you're sitting there visualizing this instrument panel with this gauge on it now, and you say, my pain's at a 9, I'm really hurting. Well, reach over there and touch that dial in your mind. You play this along in your mind. You touch that dial and you're dialing this down, and the gauge hooked to that dial goes from 9 to 8 to 7. You dial it down to a 1. I said, now sit there and think about that. Your pain level's now at a 1. Then you can take yourself out of that state. Now this is self-hypnosis, so you get all control of yourself. Bring yourself out of hypnosis, and every time you think about your pain, remember dialing that down on that gauge. It's that simple to release some of your pain. Now, the reason that works is because your pain is a signal that goes to your brain. The brain is the computer that tells you how intense that pain is. You can dial that down to where it's manageable to you. So it's something to give yourself a try. Just remember, you want to go in as deep a state of relaxation as possible. And when you do that, you want to remember the feeling that you feel in your body when you're in that state. You should be totally relaxed, no pressure on you. And just before the falling asleep state, paint that in your memory, so whenever you sit down next time, you can remember that state and how that felt, and you can bring yourself into that. That's called the hypnotic trance. Bring yourself into that trance, and then you don't have to go through all this fancy induction stuff to put yourself in that state. And then you just give yourself suggestions on what you want to do, change how you want to feel, and stuff like that. So just remember, you're looking for that dial, and you're physically turning that dial to lower your state. That's how simple it can be. So that's something to think about next time you're feeling some pain. It's not going to cure it, but it might help you deal with it.